Hello everybody, Maggie Higgins here from the St. John Art Center. I'm an artist and an educator, and every week I bring you a new fun art activity that you can do while you're staying safe at home. Because the weather is getting so nice, I thought we have to get outside. We have to go for a walk. Maybe it's just your backyard, maybe it's around your neighborhood, but what we're gonna do is some field research, which means we go out in the field and we collect different plant samples and we use those in our artwork to make a beautiful composition like the one you see behind me. So if you wanna get out, get some fresh air, learn something, and get creative, let's go.
I absolutely love doing this project. It is so fun to get outside and you get to see your world a little bit differently. You never really notice how many different interesting plants there are in your neighborhood or in your backyard until you get down on the ground and you start to explore. What's great about this project, it can be completely your own. You can do any composition you like, any color, any size. It's up to you, and you can reuse these plants because we're gonna learn how to preserve them as well.
Like with any of our projects, it's a really good idea to get your supplies ready first, and that way you have them at your disposal when you're ready to get creative. So the first thing you're gonna need, we're going outside to collect plant samples. We need to collect them in something. I like to get a basket like this one. This is an old apple basket. You can use a reusable grocery bag. You could use a plastic Tupperware, really anything you have with you. It's also a really nice idea to go out with a family member or somebody in your bubble so that you can have some help. Somebody can carry, somebody can pick the plants, and you can trade off. We'll also need wax paper. This wax paper is really a great way to flatten our specimens and keep them nice and safe. Wax paper is a really good way to preserve and protect our plant samples. Next thing you're gonna need is scissors. The scissors are gonna help you cut through the stems to make it easier to cut your specimens. The next thing you're gonna need is a really heavy book. I'm using the History of Art, very appropriate. You can use any book at all, it really doesn't matter. We just want it for the weight. We want to squish down our plant samples so they're easier to trace later, flatten them out and preserve them in our wax paper. So we need something heavy. If you don't have a big heavy book like this, that's okay. You can just use a board and stack some heavy objects on top of it and it'll do the same thing. The next thing you're gonna need is paper. So I used a really nice big piece of paper for this one, but I have smaller paper here. You can use any paper, it doesn't matter. Printer paper, sketchbook, whatever you have will work. The next thing you're gonna need is a pencil. You can use a mechanical or a regular pencil, really doesn't matter. You just need something to trace your plants with. You will also need markers. So a variety of colors is good. I like the ones that are a little bit thinner. You can get more detail in those, but any markers you have, you can even use pencil crayons. You could use pastels, you could use crayons. Anything you have to color these in will work great. And lastly, you will need a black ink pen. I use this to define the edges of my plants. It's a really great idea because it gives some visual impact, makes it look very finished and polished, and it also helps you fix some of your mistakes because I always color outside the lines. Look at all of these plants. I had so much fun collecting these. I am lucky enough to live across the street from an open field, so I went out there with my dog and we sniffed around and we found all of these interesting plants. I really tried to find lots of different sizes and textures and shapes and blooms, because I wanted some variety to choose from. It's also important that you make sure that you have permission to be taking plants from wherever you're taking them from. Make sure it's not somebody's garden and they weren't planted there on purpose. And also be mindful that you're only taking what you need. You're not taking the whole plant from the root. You're maybe just taking a leaf or a branch or two. Nothing too extreme. I really like the idea of having lots of different shapes of leaves because that will create a really interesting composition. You can also categorize. Maybe you only collect flowers. Maybe you only collect branches. It's up to you. Whatever you want to create, you can go out and do it. Now, in this part, you'll see I have wax paper laid out, and I'm preserving my plants in that large book we were discussing earlier. The reason we use wax paper is because the wax helps protect the plant when it's being squashed, but also because plants are organic, they are full of water like all living things, that they will release that water when they are pressed down. So the wax actually protects the book as well. So I like to leave my plants under the pressure of the book for maybe a couple hours, or maybe you want to leave it for a couple days, and they'll just continue to preserve themselves, which is really nice because you can use them for lots of different projects and make lots of different compositions with them.
So now we can let our plants rest inside the pages of our book for a couple of days or a couple hours. And when we take them out, look how nice and flat they are, easy to trace onto a page, which is wonderful. We want to look at the negative shape of the object. So what's the outside shape, not the inside detail? And when we've chosen some plants we like, we can start imagining what our composition is going to look like on our page and bring those plants over and start tracing. The first thing I chose to use was my largest object, which was this nice long branch. And so this is going to be the center point of my composition. I hold it down with one finger and then I gently trace around the edges. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be a general idea. Next, I'm going to choose my second largest object and find a place where it looks nice, it fits with my first object well, and do the same thing, gently holding it down and tracing around the edges. You can see as you go, and as the plants get drier, you might lose a couple leaves, but that's all right. And again, it doesn't need to be exact, but just try your best to go around and really document what the plant looks like. Next, I'm using these lovely different kinds of leaves, and I'm adding those in, create a nice spread in my composition and a little bit of variety. It's a very diagonal composition, which I really like, so all the plants are almost leaning towards the same upper left corner. Now I'm going to color in my plants. So I'm coloring in my plants. I wanted to start with my favorite color, which was this deep kind of berry red. I did that on my largest object, and I decided I kind of want to do almost like a rainbow coming off of this. So next I go to a lighter red, and then I go to a kind of burnt orange or a lighter orange for my other plants. And I just keep coloring. This is such a fun thing to do. If you're maybe you're watching TV, maybe you're listening to the radio, maybe you're talking to friends or your parents. I had a great time. It was almost like a meditation while I was doing this. So your parents, your friends, they might want to join in once they see how much fun you're having. Moving up into the top of my composition, and I'm coloring that in more purple. And then I decided I wanted more variety with some of those leaves, so I actually layered my marker on some of those bottom leaves. You can do that too. Experiment with different ways of creating color and rich color. Now we are going in that black pen I was mentioning before, and we're just outlining the outside of our plants. As you can see, it gives a really nice polished definition to all of our plants, and especially on little leaves like this that have a whole lot of texture, you couldn't really see them before I put it in the black outline, so it's a nice touch. And here's my piece all finished. I absolutely love it. I am so happy with it. I think it was a really fun activity, and it just makes me want to make more and more. I hope you make this your own. I hope you have a lot of fun with it and that you continue to observe the world around you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had fun doing some field research and making some art. If you enjoyed today's video and you want to support your local art center, you can donate by visiting our website, sjartcenter.ca/donate, and supporting us that way. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week with a new art project. Bye!